Right. So this story, it's really been kind of, messing with me. This whole thing with the UnitedHealthcare CEO. And I mean, how people are reacting to it is just, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you got memes, and then there's these lookalike contests. People are even talking about like jury nullification if they ever actually catch the guy.
Right.
And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, has the internet completely just lost its mind? It feels like there's got to be something deeper going on here.
I think what's really interesting about this is that it's not the typical reaction you see when something like this happens, right? You would expect people to be like really sad or, condemning this act, but there's this like, I don't know, this
Yeah.
undercurrent of almost like celebration.
Yeah, vindication. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, it's like people are dealing with all these really complex emotions, and it's
Yeah.
all happening on this like massive Reddit thread that just keeps blowing up.
That's exactly where we're getting all this from, is this Reddit thread that just seems to keep growing and growing. And it's just fascinating. And one of the most shocking things to me is just the lack of sympathy for this CEO.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just that people don't care, it's that they seem to actually be happy about it.
I think a lot of that comes from, the healthcare system in America. I mean, it's a mess.
Yeah.
People are just so frustrated with insurance companies, and they feel like these companies, they're the bad guys, They care more about making money than they do about people.
So is it that this healthcare system is kind of the enemy here for a lot of people?
I think so, yeah. I mean, think about your own experiences, right? All the paperwork, the crazy high costs, always worrying about whether they're going to cover you or not.
Oh, yeah.
And then you multiply that by millions of people,
Yeah.
all having these like awful experiences, and it just builds up all this anger and frustration.
Yeah, for sure.
And then this happens, it's tragic, but it kind of becomes this focal point for all that pent-up rage.
It's like the CEO, he's become, I don't know, like a symbol for a system that just feels so rigged against normal people.
Exactly. And that's where you get this whole thing with the alleged shooter being this like folk hero, right? People are comparing him to like Robin Hood, revolutionaries.
It's in like V for Vendetta.
Yeah, it's like they want anyone to challenge the system,
Right.
to shake things up.
It's wild. And people aren't just like saying nice things about him. They're making fan art. They're like, I saw him here, I saw him there.
It's crazy.
It's like this whole mythos is being built around him.
It really speaks to this deep need people have to have someone fight for them, for the little guy, especially when it feels like nothing else is working.
Right.
But then it makes you think, is this a good thing? Are we romanticizing violence? It's a tough question.
Yeah, because on the one hand, you can see why people are so drawn to this idea of this lone wolf going up against a system that seems unbeatable. But at the same time, this is a real person who died.
Right.
A family that's grieving,
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to remember that, to acknowledge the tragedy of what happened, but also try to understand why people are reacting the way they are.
Right.
And these online spaces, they give us a window into that, into how people are processing this.
What are they afraid of? What are they angry about?
Exactly.
And I think one thing that keeps coming up over and over again on this Reddit thread is this feeling of powerlessness.
Right.
Like the system is just rigged to protect the powerful, and everyone else is just kind of screwed.
Yeah, definitely. And then you see that feeding into this discussion about jury nullification. This idea that even if they catch the guy, a jury would never convict him.
Yeah, they're already saying that on the Reddit thread. Like, there's no way he could get a fair trial because everyone's biased
It's wild.
against the healthcare system. So what is jury nullification? Like, how does that even work?
It's interesting, actually. It's been around for a long time in American law. Basically, what it means is that a jury, they can choose to find someone not guilty, even if they think they technically broke the law,
Wow.
because they believe the law itself is unjust,
Interesting.
or that it shouldn't apply in that specific case. So it's kind of like a way for people to directly say, hey, we don't agree with this law and we're not going to enforce it.
Huh. That's pretty powerful.
It is, yeah. It's a big statement.
And in this case, it's like people are already making that statement,
Yeah.
saying there's no way this guy could get a fair trial.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's had to deal with the healthcare system
Right.
would be biased.
Exactly. They feel like anyone who's ever been through that, they just couldn't be objective about it. Yeah, it's almost like they're putting the legal system on trial right alongside the guy.
It's wild. And you mentioned before those comparisons that people are making, like Robin Hood, V for Vendetta.
Oh,
Even like the Joker, which is kind of a weird one, but
It is, but it's interesting, right? It's not just that they're saying, oh, he's a good guy or whatever.
right.
It's the specifics, you know? They're focusing on the methods, the reasons behind it, the symbolism.
Right, like he's a symbol.
Exactly. Like
Okay.
they're drawing these direct parallels between what he supposedly did and how these characters in movies and stuff
Yeah.
fought against corrupt systems.
You see comments like, he's a modern-day Robin Hood, stealing from the rich insurance companies to help the sick.
Right.
Or he's just like V from V for Vendetta, fighting against this like tyrannical government.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And I think those comparisons, even though they're obviously not perfect, they show how much people want someone to just disrupt things,
Yeah.
to expose how broken the system is, you know?
It's like they're desperate for someone, anyone, to hold the powerful accountable.
Exactly. And you see that desire for accountability in the humor, too.
Oh, yeah, the memes.
So the memes.
We can't talk about this without talking about all the memes. It's like
It's insane.
the whole internet just explodes.
It's fascinating, though, because they're using this dark humor to deal with these really complex emotions like grief and anger.
Yeah.
It's like a coping mechanism, but it's also a way for them to criticize the system they think is responsible for all this.
We're seeing memes like, denied, gun was out of network,
Yeah.
or like, how do we know the bullet wasn't a pre-existing condition?
It's dark, but you gotta admit, some of them are pretty clever.
Yeah, there's a dark cleverness to it.
And that's what makes them spread so fast, you know? They're not just jokes.
Right.
They're social commentary.
Yeah.
They're using satire to point out how ridiculous the healthcare system is.
Yeah, like it's more about profits than people.
Exactly. But we have to remember that this isn't just some abstract online thing, right?
Right.
This actually happened. There are real consequences, both for the people directly involved and for the whole conversation about healthcare in America.
It feels like there's this huge disconnect between how the media is covering this, like it's just a horrible crime,
Yeah.
and how so many people are actually reacting to it.
It really shows how little trust people have in institutions anymore.
In the media, the government, corporations.
Yeah, like they feel like these institutions are controlling their lives.
I saw this one comment on the Reddit thread, and it really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
It said, this is just a preview of what would happen if the elites weren't so good at turning us against each other.
Wow.
It's kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
But it shows how deeply people believe that the system is designed to keep them divided and distracted.
It's a powerful observation, and I think this case, in a weird way, has brought people together.
Yeah, against this common enemy.
Exactly. They're all united against the healthcare system that they feel is screwing them over.
And that unity, I don't know, it's showing up in some strange ways.
Oh, tell me about it.
Like they're having this look-alike contest in Washington Square Park.
Way, really.
Yeah, people are dressing up like the alleged shooter.
I don't even know what to say to that. It's
It's
just
a choice.
It's a choice, yeah. It's like the line between what's real and what's this fictional story they've created.
Right.
It's totally blurred. The actual act itself doesn't even seem to matter anymore.
Yeah, it's all about what he represents.
He's like a blank slate for people to project their anger onto.
And that's what worries me,
Yeah.
this glorification of violence, even if it's directed at someone people think deserves it.
It's a slippery slope, for sure. We need to understand why people are so angry, but we can't condone violence as the answer.
Yeah, because it brings up this bigger question. What happens when people feel like the system is so broken that they're willing to look past violence to get justice?
Exactly. And that's a question we really need to think about.
So many people on that Reddit thread are sharing these really personal stories about how the healthcare system has messed them up.
Yeah.
Denied claims, debt, people even dying because they couldn't get the care they needed.
It's heartbreaking.
It reminds us that this isn't just some internet thing.
Yeah.
These are real people's lives.
And I think those stories are what we need to focus on. We need to move past the shock value of this one event and start talking about the bigger picture,
Yeah.
about how to make healthcare accessible and affordable for everyone.
Right, because at the end of the day, the real story here is the anger and frustration
Exactly.
that this whole thing has brought to the surface.
People want change, and we need to figure out how to make that happen.
So, where do we go from here? What can we even do? It feels so overwhelming.
I think the first step is to just listen, to really hear what people are saying online,
Yeah.
to understand their anger and why they feel so helpless,
Right.
and to realize that this isn't just some isolated incident, it's part of a much bigger problem in our society.
And then maybe, by listening and understanding, we can start finding real solutions.
Exactly. Solutions that actually address the root causes of these problems instead of just reacting to the symptoms.
It's a long road,
Yeah,
but it's a conversation we need to have.
absolutely. And this case, as awful as it is, it might be what finally forces us to have that conversation.
This whole thing, it really makes you question, like, what is justice? What are the limits? Like, what are we even okay with as a society?
Right. And all those questions, they're happening right now on
Yeah.
places like Reddit. People are debating, is this okay? Is this vigilantism? What's the legal system supposed to do about this kind of thing?
I saw this one thread, and it was comparing this to, like, school shootings,
Oh, wow.
mass shootings, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And they were saying, like, if it had been someone else, the reaction would be totally different.
That's a pretty disturbing thought, isn't it?
It is. It's like who the victim is, what they represent.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
actually
yeah.
changes how we feel about justice.
It's like our whole idea of what's right and wrong depends on who got hurt, you know?
Yeah. And you got people saying, like, it's messed up that so many people are fine with this just because they hate insurance companies.
Right.
But then others are like, well, this is what happens when you push people too far. Don't be surprised when they snap.
It's almost like we're picking and choosing our morals, you know? Like, violence is only bad sometimes.
And then there's the question of what happens to this guy if they catch him.
Yeah, right.
Some people think he's going to be a folk hero, like a jury would never convict him.
Right. Like, he can't get a fair trial.
But then others think the legal system, even if it's messed up, it'll still do its thing.
I think that shows how blurry the lines have become, you know?
Yeah.
Between what people think is right and what the law actually says.
It's all over the Reddit thread. People sharing these stories about how the healthcare system has screwed them over,
Yeah.
denied claims, debt collectors hounding them, people dying because they couldn't afford treatment.
It's awful. And it reminds us that this isn't just some theoretical thing.
Yeah.
It's real people's lives.
Really brings it home.
I think we need to shift the focus, you know, away from all the sensationalism of this one event and towards those stories.
Right. Of course, the bigger picture.
Exactly. How do we make healthcare affordable? How do we make sure everyone can get the care they need?
It's easy to get lost in the drama of it all.
Yeah,
But the real story here is the anger and frustration.
absolutely.
People are desperate for change.
And it's up to us to figure out how to channel that into something positive, something that actually makes a difference.
So what can we do? It feels like such a huge problem.
Well, I think the first thing is to support organizations that are fighting for healthcare reform.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, learn about the issues, talk to your friends and family about it, talk to
Mhm.
your elected officials, you know. Make your voice heard.
Okay, yeah, make your voice heard.
It might feel like a small thing, but it all adds up.
This deep dive, it's been pretty dark, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
But it also gives me hope. Seeing how many people care about this, it shows we can come together.
definitely. There's power in collective action, you know, and this has really brought people together,
It's made us confront some uncomfortable truths,
for sure.
made us think differently about things.
Yeah, it's like a wake-up call in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We can't just ignore these problems anymore.
And it shows that we all have a part to play in fixing things.
Absolutely. Everyone has a role.
This deep dive, it wasn't just about this crime, this CEO.
Yeah, it's so much bigger than that.
It's about our systems, about how broken they are, about how angry people are.
It's about wanting something better.
It's about needing something better.
Absolutely.
And it's about realizing that we can do something about it.
We can make a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you something to think about.
Definitely. And maybe even inspired you to get involved.
We all need to work together to create a better future.
It starts with each one of us.
Thanks for listening.